Pro doesn't mean having auto modes that take your brain out of the decision-making process. This is an awesome consumer smartphone. The iPhone 11 Pro completely fails to fulfill Apple's marketing claims out of the box, but no one can fault this is a top-tier premium smartphone. Starting with design, from the XS to the 11 Pro, we're cycling through a similar philosophy. I don't think Apple will stay with this look as long as they did with the iPhone 6 form factor, but if it's not broke, don't fix it. From the notch to the ever-increasing camera bulge, there's a continuity of aesthetic. I mention those 2 points specifically as the notch still cuts into app and video content. I'm disappointed that many Android devices are now starting to do the same. It's kind of a crapshoot these days if you can actually hide the notch from app to app. And I still think having a lumpy bulge on the back of the phone is lazy design. Made worse in the era of multi-camera devices. Apple's stovetop look is awkward at best, especially compared against older phones like the iPhone 5. If Nokia can deliver flush camera sensors for multiple camera arrays, Apple should be able to figure this out. But like any other premium smartphone, a huge slab of glass-on-glass sandwich, you really need to keep it in a case regardless. Whatever other design accents one might praise are largely moot once the consumer gets their hands on the phone and pops it in a case. Moving on to the software, iOS continues to satisfy as a fluid interface, but the software still hasn't evolved as much as I would have hoped for the increase in physical phone size. For such a powerful device, there are still roadblocks that require other computers or accessories to circumvent, like folder management. I like pretending that I have an app drawer because a home screen full of apps is a horrific way to navigate a device. Now, can I easily alphabetize that folder? No! iOS is still functioning as if general consumers won't need many more apps than what came pre-installed. That's a software philosophy from the Palm Pilot days, and our tools to manage that are still woefully basic. And iOS still requires me to spend more time managing the phone than focusing on whatever task I'm trying to accomplish. When we're just covering the smartphone basics, this is incredibly fluid performance. Apple has always delightfully hidden the loading and processing times behind fantastic animations. But for this class-leading performance of the iPhone chipset, we've basically reached parity across the premium smartphone market. Loading similar services, recording the screens, we're within a frame or two in actual load times. The iPhone feels more responsive, but it's often not really getting you there any faster. As iOS gets more complicated, we do run into a few more shaky UI issues. Multitasking animations can get choppy, or item selection in the Photos app which isn't as smooth as a Pixel performing a similar task. The point I'm getting at, all computers will hit moments where they get stuck for a split second and have to catch up to the user command. If you're the person who proudly trumpets, "My phone never lags," all we can surmise is that you don't really do anything with your phone, not that your phone is somehow the magic exception to the computing rule. Now, I get a bit annoyed when premium priced gadgets get stuck in a lowest common denominator use kind of conversation. This is a Pro labeled phone. We should care more about the heavy lifting, maybe tablet or laptop displacement use, not covering the basics. I don't want to repeat myself too much in this video, but I shot a whole separate video looking at Pro performance and how this phone stacks up against a current premium Android. TLDR, the A13 benchmarks way better, but users really don't seem to get access to all of that power. I have to remind folks, Apple made huge claims about performance and content creation for this phone. I can understand Apple brand fans getting a bit frustrated with my commentary. If your argument is regular people don't do things like that with their phones, what are you doing talking about regular people in the comments on a review of a $1,300 phone? You are incorrect, not me. I'm trying to evaluate this performance based on Apple's marketing. Apple is making huge claims not me. Now, if Apple had claimed this was a super lush, premium phone for covering the basics and opening Snapchat a fraction of a millisecond faster, I wouldn't be stressing these results as hard. Apple didn't do that. Apple showed this phone as the main camera used for a shoot in a multi-million-dollar production facility and regularly promotes the use of mobile editing apps. Apple is claiming this is the default choice for mobile content creation, and their claims don't quite hold true. When comparing similar editing applications and similar production quality, the iPhone 11 Pro regularly loses to 2019 Android phones and often struggles to outpace 2018 Android phones. All of our pocket computers have gotten incredibly powerful, and for YouTube, vlogging, mobile journalism, they can outperform most consumer laptops dollar for dollar. The iPhone is competitive in that discussion, but it doesn't score many outright victories. If you're familiar with the iPhone, you'll probably achieve better results with an iPhone. We should always be skeptical of those videos like, I traded my daily driver for a competing device for a week. If I take a lifelong Canon shooter and on the day of a wedding swap all of their gear for Sony gear, they'll achieve poorer results at no fault of the Sony camera. And I feel you, Apple fans, you're not used to being confronted like this, but if you're scrambling to vent in my comments, try not to confuse your familiarity for an objective phone advantage. Check out that Pro phone comparison I shot. Most of the measurable differences we can track, not my personal preferences, the stuff I actually timed with a stopwatch, side with 2019 Androids. And this iPhone, the iPhone 11, is going to be facing tough competition from the next generation of Android devices coming out soon. But the iPhone surely does get those bigger synthetic benchmark scores, so solid win there. This phone also marks the first time I haven't bothered producing a standalone audio review in years. Apple is stagnant here. The dongle is the same. The speaker performance is very good. There's just not much to say, especially in an era where most manufacturers are forcing an additional accessory purchase for headphone users. We kinda broke this phone removing the headphone jack. We don't even include a dongle in the box anymore, and you get to pay a little bit more to fix what we broke. From the brand that revolutionized consumer digital audio, the iPhone 11 is pretty much the same as where we've been since the iPhone 7. Moving right along, the cameras are a major talking point for this generation of iPhone, and we're in great shape for an auto mode shooter. Apple taking a lead in the computational photography race. Now, I'm almost done with a separate deep dive camera review coming to the Patreon soon, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. So I'm gonna have a bit more to share once that video's done. In the meantime, I can share a little of my early results. Everything has a bit of an HDR sheen to it. What the iPhone is doing in stacking multiple exposures is not the same as actual dynamic range, the light and shadow detail you'd see from a proper camera, but the iPhone balances this processing pretty well. Its look, I think, is a bit heavier processed than I would personally like, but tends to be a crowd pleaser for social media. Handy competition against the Pixel for auto mode stills. The big push for 2019, though, is video, where the iPhone was the second phone of 2019 to properly support software stabilization for all three sensors at 4K and 60 frames per second. No, the first phone to properly support all three cameras was not a Samsung. In talking about how we gadget nerds can kind of oversell a product, I have this frustration with gadget reviewers that really don't seem to know much about photography. You'll regularly hear quips like, my iPhone can do automatically what another phone needs a pro mode to do. And if you've ever said anything like that, you don't really know what you're talking about. And you're probably also really confident in your ignorance. That's not how cameras work. A manual mode is critical for dialing in exactly the look and feel you want and make sure you can keep a consistent look from shot to shot. Auto mode manages settings for you to generically balance exposure for an all-around good final output in the most common shooting situations. And this changes your exposure settings in real time. A major issue for pros is maintaining that consistent look. We do not want the camera changing color tone, exposure, or shutter speed on the fly. The quality of the video isn't really the issue here. The 2019 iPhones deliver excellent video for general consumers. It's smooth, vibrant, and it is impressive how the video mimics some of the computational photography tricks for balancing highlights and shadow detail. But there's nothing pro about this out of the box. One reason why Apple spent so much time showing off Filmic. If we're judging the phone on Apple's marketing claims, then a collection of third-party apps are necessary add-ons to reach some of those aspirational goals. And we should point out Apple and Filmic kinda over-promising. Filmic's multi-camera mode isn't nearly as impressive as we were hoping it would be. We've been doing 2-camera 1080p since the LG G3 and the Note 4. It's a shame Android manufacturers gave up on dual camera capture and picture-in-picture, because now it's apparently a super impressive feature now that the iPhone can do it. Moving right along, I've been trying to find some more consistent ways to test things like wireless performance. LTE is nearly impossible to test scientifically, but in my anecdotal comparisons around town, I regularly saw about a 3 to 5 decibel drop compared to an LG or Samsung. This was actually better than I was expecting given the Intel modem in this phone, and definitely an improvement over my iPhone XS. And funnily, I think this might be another vote in favor of using a case on the phone. Apple doesn't make network measurement as easy as Android. I wish more people were testing this stuff for me to collaborate with. I seem to find bigger drop-offs in signal when holding the phone naked than when I use the phone with a case. So anyone out there watching this, I'd humbly ask you to try too. Share some screenshots if holding it wrong is still a thing for iPhones. As for Wi-Fi, that testing is way easier to do consistently, where I can download files from my NOS directly on my home network from the same place in my garage and control every device connected to my network. I run a series of downloads and compare the different times and the download speeds. I was really excited on my very first run, where this iPhone was much more competitive against Android devices, but then I saw a steep drop-off running multiple downloads. And I don't see the same fall-off on Qualcomm-powered devices. At its worst, the modem was pulling a quarter of its first download speed. I don't run these tests at the same time, but after the iPhone struggled to hit a 5 megabyte download, I fired up a V50 in the same spot to see if it was a problem with my network, and then the V50 just blew right by the iPhone. Apple charges the most for an internet-connected slab of phone, but still hasn't quite caught up to the connection stability of modern Android handsets. Lastly, the iPhone 11 Pro Max certainly deserves praise for battery life. It's a solid option near the top of the charts. I don't run a lot of heavy battery benchmarking. Everyone's use is going to be a little different, but it was not hard landing 2 full days of light use for me. My experience is totally vibe with some of the other reviews I've read. You have to look at larger devices or phones with bigger batteries to best this phone. But I will need to re-examine the LG G8X when I get it back. I'm not sure how GSM Arena got those numbers out of an LG. Recharge times have also improved out of the box. A premium Android device can still charge a larger percentage of a bigger battery in the same amount of time, but at least iPhone owners don't have to wait for ages to top this phone off. Some unasked for advice: I might recommend against using the 29-watt charger with your phone, as it runs a lot warmer. And then also don't forget, Apple still throttles CPU performance when your battery ages. They just call it a feature now instead of trying to hide it like they got sued for. All in all though, snarkiness aside, I think most users are going to be very happy with the runtime they get out of the iPhone 11 Pro, especially in the first year of use. Whew. So that was a lot of talking. We should probably wrap this up. Where's that leave us with the iPhone 11 Pro Max? It's good, very good, no question there. My absolute favorite thing about reviewing this phone was getting to use my Apple Watch again. It's a terrific combination, and just how much I absolutely adore Apple's approach to wearable technology. As a fan of smartwatches, it's really good. It's really good. But I am getting a little tired of seeing reviews claim some kind of dominance. Minus the ultra-wide camera, I'm not sure I'd have noticed much difference in daily use against my iPhone XS. Though I swear the feel of long pressing against force pressing is different. Very sensitive fingertips, they totally know what's up. There's a lot of chatter surrounding this phone like it's some kind of ultra solution. The compromise-free handset at a premium price. We just need to be fair acknowledging that every phone has compromises. You're being super disingenuous if you act like a compromise on another phone is a deal breaker, but compromises here somehow don't matter. You know, all those folks that hear one issue on another gadget and act like that's a deal breaker. The iPhone 11 Pro asks you to make a few compromises too. First, I can't recommend anyone buy the base model storage device. If 64 gig is a deal breaker on a $900 Pixel 4 XL, it's certainly $200 more of a deal breaker on an $1,100 iPhone which shoots better video. That means the price for a hardware competitive iPhone Pro Max is $1,249. If someone out there is complaining about a $999 Samsung, LG, Sony, or Pixel, but they're positive on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, that means they're giving Apple a 25% cash advantage. $250 more on a phone with poorer radio performance, no advanced content capture tools, and if you hold on to your phone for any length of time, 5G might matter to you over the next couple years. I'd say those are compromises worth discussing. And then we should also weigh that against Apple's marketing claims. You're paying $250 more for a phone that is often outperformed by premium Android devices in exactly the areas Apple says this phone should dominate. And then, just because it still makes me super cranky, you're gonna be saddled with a lightning connector, which might be on its way out soon thanks to the EU, and requires you to buy significantly more expensive accessories, which are less functional than their USB counterparts. I know, I'm laying it on a little thick. People really bristle when I talk about popular devices with any critical tone. Just because Apple is one of the most popular brand names you can own in tech doesn't magically make this a perfect flaw-free device. And consumers, the general population of people out there that reviewers say they care about, seem to be giving up on us tech enthusiasts in talking about gadgets. iPhones are super popular, but the iPhone Pros were outsold by the iPhone 11, last year's XR, and even the iPhone 8 Plus as the top picks for consumers this last holiday season. And who could blame them? The regular iPhone 11 is a stonking good buy, taking most of this performance closer to OnePlus pricing. As it stands, the iPhone 11 Pro does not achieve the same separation of performance and functionality when we compare other gadgets in the Apple ecosystem. iPad to iPad Pro, iMac to Mac Pro. You pay a lot more for an iPhone Pro for a few small perks. But hey, you won't be seen with that cheap iPhone, if that's important to you. As always, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to this channel. Tech reviews should take a little time, and we should always remember that these things are never magic. Talk to your family and friends. I bet you the idea of buying a new phone today is exhausting to them. And folks really don't seem to be excited about flipping their phones these days. More than ever, it's up to us nerds to be good resources for our social circles, as folks look at how they should spend their cash. If you would like to help support the production of those conversations, there are some links below, or you might consider joining the list of names scrolling by on your screen. A growing community of fun, like-minded tech pals, a huge resource for me planning future videos and reviews. They're super cool people. I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch, and the Facebooks and the Instagrams, and I will catch you all on the next review.